Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. Today wasn't just another joke or casual remark to his friends. Tonight was different. Tonight, Felipe would step out as Aubrey. He carefully applied makeup, transforming his features with each stroke of the brush. The wig, a cascade of dark curls, completed the look. Felipe took a deep breath, steadying himself. The reflection staring back at him was both familiar and foreign, a culmination of years of hidden desires and suppressed truths. As he slipped on the high heels, Felipe felt a surge of confidence. The click of the heels against the hardwood floor was like a battle cry, announcing his transformation to the empty room. He grabbed his purse, took one last glance in the mirror, and headed out into the night. The local bar, a familiar haunt for Felipe and his friends, seemed different tonight. The neon lights cast a surreal glow on the sidewalk as he approached. Music spilled out onto the street, a pulsing rhythm that matched the quickening of his heart. Inside, the bar was alive with energy. Bodies moved on the dance floor, drinks clinked at the bar, and laughter punctuated the air. Felipe, now fully embodying Aubrey, scanned the room for his friends. He spotted them at their usual table, already a few drinks in. As Aubrey approached, she watched their expressions change from casual amusement to shock. The conversation at the table died abruptly, replaced by wide-eyed stares and slack jaws. "Hey guys," Aubrey said, her voice slightly higher than usual. "Mind if I join you?" For a moment, no one spoke. Then, as if on cue, they burst into laughter. "Felipe, man, you really went all out this time," his friend Mike exclaimed, slapping the table. "I gotta hand it to you. You had us going for a second there." Aubrey felt a twinge of disappointment. Of course, they thought it was a joke. It had always been a joke before. She forced a smile and took a seat, smoothing her dress as she sat. "So, what are we drinking tonight?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Well, Aubrey," Mike said with a wink, "I think this calls for a round of tequila shots. What do you say, boys?" The group cheered, and Mike headed to the bar. Aubrey sat uncomfortably, aware of the sideways glances from her friends and the curious stares from other patrons. She crossed her legs, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of the dress against her skin. Mike returned with a tray of shots, passing them around the table. "To Felipe," he said, raising his glass. "And his commitment to a good joke." They clinked glasses and downed the shots. The tequila burned Aubrey's throat, but she welcomed the warmth that spread through her body. As the alcohol began to take effect, she felt her nervousness start to fade. After a few more rounds, the initial shock of Aubrey's appearance had worn off, replaced by the easy camaraderie of old friends. The conversation flowed, punctuated by laughter and playful jabs. "I gotta say, Felipe," his friend Chris slurred, "you make a pretty convincing woman. If I didn't know better, I'd think you'd done this before." Aubrey tensed. This was her moment. The alcohol had loosened her tongue and bolstered her courage. She took a deep breath and said, "Actually, guys, there's something I need to tell you." The table fell silent, all eyes on Aubrey. She could feel her heart racing, but there was no turning back now. "This isn't a joke," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've always wanted to do this. To dress like this, I mean, it's not just for laughs or a bet. It's who I am." For a long moment, no one spoke. Aubrey could feel the weight of their stares, could almost hear the gears turning in their alcohol-addled minds as they processed her words. Finally, Mike broke the silence. "Wait, so you're saying this is for real? Like, you actually want to dress as a woman?" Aubrey nodded, not trusting her voice. Chris leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "Wow, man. Wow, I don't really know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Aubrey said quickly. I needed you guys to know the truth. I'm tired of hiding it." The tension at the table was palpable. Aubrey braced herself for rejection, for anger, for the loss of friendships she'd cherished for years. But then, something unexpected happened. Mike reached across the table and put his hand on Aubrey's. "Hey, look, we might not understand it completely, but you're our friend." if this is what makes you happy, then, well, we've got your back." The others nodded in agreement, their expressions a mix of confusion and support. Aubrey felt tears welling up in her eyes, overwhelmed by the acceptance she'd never dared to hope for. "Thank you," she whispered, squeezing Mike's hand. As the night wore on, the initial awkwardness began to dissipate. More drinks were ordered, and the conversation gradually shifted back to familiar territory: work, relationships, and the latest sports scores. But there was a new undercurrent to their interactions, a sense of newfound openness and trust. Aubrey found herself relaxing, truly enjoying the evening for the first time. She laughed at their jokes, shared her own stories, and reveled in the freedom of being her authentic self among friends. As the bar became more crowded, the energy in the room shifted. The music grew louder, and more people filled the dance floor. Aubrey found herself tapping her foot to the beat, feeling the rhythm in her bones. "Hey," Chris said, noticing her movement. "You want to dance?" Aubrey hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." They made their way to the dance floor, weaving through the crowd. As they found a spot, Aubrey felt a moment of panic. She'd never danced in public as Aubrey before. What if she looked ridiculous? But as the music washed over her, she felt her body begin to move. The dress swirled around her legs, and she found a grace in her movements that she'd never experienced before. Chris danced beside her, a bit awkwardly, but with enthusiasm. Soon, Mike and the others joined them on the dance floor. They formed a circle, laughing and moving to the music. Aubrey felt a surge of joy, spinning and swaying, her worries melting away with each beat of the music. As she danced, Aubrey caught glimpses of other patrons watching her. Some looked curious, others confused, and a few wore expressions of disapproval. But in that moment, surrounded by her friends and lost in the music, she found she didn't care what anyone else thought. The night wore on, a blur of dancing, drinking, and laughter. Aubrey felt more alive than she had in years, reveling in the freedom to be herself. Her friends, while still adjusting to the revelation, treated her with the same camaraderie and affection they always had. As the bar began to empty and the night drew to a close, Aubrey found herself at the bar, waiting for one last drink. She leaned against the counter, her feet aching pleasantly from hours of dancing in heels. A man sidled up next to her, his eyes roving over her figure. "Hey there, beautiful," he slurred. "Can I buy you a drink?" Aubrey tensed, unsure how to respond. Before she could speak, she felt a presence beside her. It was Mike, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "She's with us, buddy," Mike said firmly. "Thanks for the offer, though." The man looked between them, confusion evident on his face. After a moment, he shrugged and wandered off. Aubrey let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "You okay?" Mike asked, genuine concern in his voice. Aubrey nodded. "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks for that." Mike shrugged. "That's what friends are for, right?" As they rejoined the group, Aubrey felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. The night hadn't been perfect. There had been moments of discomfort, of fear, of self-doubt. But through it all, her friends had stood by her side. They spilled out onto the street, the cool night air a refreshing change from the stuffy bar. Aubrey wobbled slightly on her heels, and Chris offered his arm for support. "So," Mike said as they walked, "I guess we should start calling you Aubrey now, huh?" Aubrey considered this for a moment. Maybe just when I'm dressed like this? I'm still figuring things out, you know? Mike nodded. "Fair enough. Whatever you decide, we've got your back." As they reached the corner where they would usually part ways, there was a moment of awkward silence. Then, one by one, Aubrey's friends stepped forward to hug her. "Thanks for trusting us," Chris said softly. "It means a lot." Aubrey felt tears prickling at her eyes again. "Thanks for accepting me," she replied. As she watched her friends depart, Aubrey felt a mix of emotions. The night had been a whirlwind of revelations and experiences. She'd faced her fears, been true to herself, and found acceptance where she'd feared rejection. Walking home, the click of her heels on the pavement a steady rhythm, Aubrey reflected on the evening. It hadn't been easy, and she knew there would be more challenges ahead. But for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful about the future. As she reached her apartment, Aubrey paused before entering. She looked down at herself, the black dress, the high heels, the manicured nails. A smile played on her lips. This was just the beginning of her journey, but what a beginning it had been. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, leaving Felipe behind on the threshold and embracing Aubrey fully. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations, and perhaps new misunderstandings. But tonight, in the quiet of her apartment, Aubrey reveled in the simple joy of being herself. As she carefully removed her makeup and hung up the dress, Aubrey's mind wandered to the future. How would this change her day-to-day life? Would she find the courage to dress as Aubrey more often? How would her other friends and family react? These questions swirled in her mind, but they didn't carry the same weight of fear and anxiety they once had. Tonight had shown her that authenticity, while scary, could also be liberating. She had faced one of her biggest fears and come out stronger for it. Crawling into bed, exhausted but content, Aubrey closed her eyes. The memories of the night played like a movie in her mind. The initial shock on her friends' faces, the moment of vulnerability when she revealed the truth, the acceptance that followed, and the joy of dancing freely as her true self. She knew that this was just the first step on a long journey of self-discovery and acceptance. There would be difficult conversations ahead, potential conflicts, and moments of doubt, but she also knew that she had a support system, friends who had proven their loyalty and open-mindedness. As sleep began to overtake her, Aubrey made a promise to herself she would continue to explore this part of her identity, to be brave in the face of adversity, and to always strive for authenticity. The road ahead might be challenging, but after tonight, she felt ready to face whatever came her way. With a contented sigh, Aubrey drifted off to sleep, dreams filled with swirling dresses, pulsing music, and the warm embrace of acceptance. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, she rested, secure in the knowledge that she had taken a crucial step towards living her truth. The sunlight streaming through the curtains woke Aubrey the next morning. For a moment, she lay still, the events of the previous night flooding back to her. A smile crept across her face as she remembered the acceptance from her friends, the freedom she felt on the dance floor, and the courage it took to reveal her true self. As she got up and went about her morning routine, Aubrey found herself pausing in front of the mirror. The person staring back at her was Felipe. No makeup, no wig, no dress. But something had changed. There was a newfound confidence in her posture, a sparkle in her eye that hadn't been there before. She reached out and touched her reflection, tracing the contours of her face. "You did it," she whispered to herself. "You were brave." The day ahead loomed with its usual responsibilities. Work, errands, the mundane tasks of everyday white life. But Aubrey approached them with a new perspective. Each interaction, each task, felt like an opportunity to carry a piece of last night's courage with her. At work, Aubrey found herself more engaged, more present. The weight of her secret had been lifted, at least partially, and she felt lighter for it. She caught herself smiling more, laughing easier. A few coworkers commented on her good mood, and she simply shrugged, saying she'd had a good night out with friends. During her lunch break, Aubrey's phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Hey, how are you doing today? Last night was pretty intense. Just wanted to check in." Aubrey felt a warmth spread through her chest. She typed back, "I'm doing good. Thank you for everything last night. It means more than you know." Mike's response came quickly. "That's what friends are for. We should all get together again soon. Maybe you can give us some fashion tips, Aubrey?" She laughed out loud, drawing curious glances from her coworkers. The easy acceptance in Mike's message, the casual use of her chosen name, it all reinforced the positive experience of the previous night. As the day wore on, Aubrey found her thoughts drifting to the future. She began to imagine other scenarios, going shopping for clothes as Aubrey, perhaps venturing out to different places, maybe even telling her family. Each thought brought a mixture of excitement and anxiety, but the fear no longer felt paralyzing. After work, Aubrey made a detour on her way home. She found herself standing outside a small boutique, eyeing the dresses in the window display. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. The shop attendant, a young woman with bright blue hair, greeted her with a smile. "Can I help you find anything?" For a moment, Aubrey hesitated. Then, drawing on the courage from the night before, she said, "Yes, actually, I'm looking for a new dress, something that would look good on me." The attendant's smile never wavered. "Of course, let's take a look at some options. Did you have any particular style or color in mind?" As they moved through the store, discussing cuts and fabrics, Aubrey felt a sense of normalcy settle over her. This wasn't so different from shopping with friends, she realized. The attendant was professional and helpful, showing no judgment or surprise at Aubrey's requests. In the changing room, Aubrey tried on several dresses, each one making her feel more comfortable in her own skin. She settled on a deep green wrap dress that hugged her figure in all the right places. Looking at herself in the mirror, Aubrey felt a surge of confidence. This was right. This was her. As she made her purchase, the attendant smiled warmly. "You're going to look fantastic in that dress. Have a wonderful day." Stepping out of the store, shopping bag in hand, Aubrey felt like she was walking on air. She had just completed her first solo shopping trip as Aubrey, and it had gone better than she could have imagined. At home, Aubrey carefully hung the new dress in her closet, running her hand over the soft fabric. It hung next to the black dress from the night before, a visual representation of her growing acceptance of herself. She sat on the edge of her bed, taking in the events of the past 24 hours. In that short time, she had revealed her true self to her friends, danced the night away as Aubrey, and even bought a new dress in broad daylight. Each step, while small on its own, felt like a giant leap in her journey. Aubrey knew that there would be challenges ahead. Not everyone would be as accepting as her friends or the shop attendant. There would be difficult conversations, potential conflicts, and moments of self-doubt. But for the first time, these challenges didn't seem insurmountable. She had taken the first steps towards living authentically, and the path ahead, while uncertain, was filled with possibility. Aubrey made a promise to herself to continue exploring this part of her identity, to be patient with herself and others as she navigated this new terrain. As the evening settled in, Aubrey felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had spent so long hiding this part of herself, fearing rejection and misunderstanding, but in embracing her truth, she had found strength she didn't know she possessed. She picked up her phone and opened her group chat with her friends. "Thank you all again for last night," she typed. "It meant the world to me. How about we all get together again soon? I've got a new dress I'd love to show off." The responses came quickly, a flurry of supportive messages, jokes about her outdressing them all, and enthusiastic agreement to meet up soon. Aubrey felt her heart swell with affection for these friends who had stood by her side. The days following Aubrey's night out with her friends passed in a blur of newfound confidence and subtle shifts in her daily life. She found herself lingering longer in front of the mirror each morning, experimenting with small touches, lip gloss, a light brush of mascara, even when she presented as Felipe at work. The green dress from the boutique hung in her closet like a talisman, a reminder of the courage she'd summoned and the acceptance she'd received. Her phone buzzed incessantly now, the group chat with her friends alive with plans and playful banter. But it wasn't just the group messages that caught her attention. Chris, the quietest of the bunch that first night, had started texting her separately. At first it was casual. How's your day going? Here. That dress was killer, by the way. There. Aubrey smiled at the messages, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, before replying with something light and non-committal. She wasn't sure what to make of it, but there was a warmth in her chest each time his name popped up on her screen. A week after the bar outing, Chris's messages grew more frequent. "Hey Aubrey," one read, "you free this weekend? Thought we could grab coffee or something." The invitation caught her off guard. Coffee with Chris? Alone? She stared at the words, her stomach fluttering with a mix of nerves and curiosity. She typed back, "Sure, that sounds nice," and hit send before she could overthink it. Saturday arrived, and Aubrey stood in front of her closet, deliberating. She wanted to be herself, fully herself, but the idea of stepping out as Aubrey in broad daylight still felt daunting. She settled on the green dress, pairing it with flats instead of heels for comfort, and spent extra time perfecting her makeup. The wig framed her face in soft curls, and when she looked in the mirror, she saw Aubrey staring back, nervous but radiant. Chris was waiting outside the cafe when she arrived, his hands stuffed in his pockets, a shy grin spreading across his face as he spotted her. "Wow," he said, his voice low. "You look amazing." Aubrey blushed, smoothing the dress self-consciously. "Thanks," she murmured, stepping inside with him. The coffee date was easy, surprisingly so. Chris asked her about her week, listened intently as she talked about work and her tentative steps toward embracing this side of herself. He didn't push, didn't pry, but there was a spark in his eyes that Aubrey couldn't ignore. When he suggested they take a walk afterward, she agreed, and they wandered through the park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. At one point, their hands brushed, and Chris hesitated before taking hers gently. Aubrey's heart raced, but she didn't pull away. From there, the messages didn't stop. Every morning, her phone lit up with a "Good morning, Aubrey" from Chris, followed by little updates throughout the day. Pictures of his lunch, a funny meme, a question about her plans. He started asking her to hang out more often too, movies, dinner, a trip to the arcade. Each time, he encouraged her to dress up, to lean into her femininity. "You should wear that red lipstick next time," he'd say with a grin, or "I bet you'd rock a skirt with that top." Aubrey found herself complying, not out of pressure, but because she liked the way it made her feel. Seen, desired, girly, as he put it. She didn't know how to process it at first. Was this just Chris being supportive, or was there something more? The way he looked at her, the way his hand lingered on her arm when they said goodbye, suggested the latter. Aubrey felt comfortable around him, more than she'd expected. His attention was intoxicating, a validation of the self she was still learning to embrace. After a few weeks of near-daily hangouts, it became undeniable. They were on what could only be called a date, dinner at a cozy Italian place, candlelight flickering between them, when Chris reached across the table and took her hand again, this time with purpose. "Aubrey," he said, his voice soft but steady, "I really like you, really like you." Her breath caught, her mind spinning. She'd suspected it, but hearing it aloud made it real. I like you too," she admitted, her voice trembling with the weight of the confession. Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more. I hope you have a wonderful day, my cutie.